The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling,
whether you like it or you don't like it,
needs us.
Regardless of what the IWC thought about tonight's Royal Rumble, it was a very good show. A lot of newsworthy things happened. The bottom line is, and I just tweeted this out to respond to a couple other my fellow podcast brethren. I said, listen, WWE has to be able to fill Cowboy Stadium, AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas, which the biggest crowd they've ever had for a show, for an event there, was a national title game, 105,000 people. When they configure WrestleMania this coming year, let's just say it'll be 80 to 90,000 seats at maximum. They'll be able to fill that stadium. And they got to do that over 2 nights. So who else at this point are you going to have on the marquee on both nights for the matches they're going to have, besides Brock, Roman, Becky, and Ronda? That's what you got to ask yourself. That's what they did tonight. Is it predictable? Is it always the same people at the top? Absolutely. This is what they had to do. I said this going back to July, and I said to myself, if WWE is going to be able to pull the ambitious effort they're going to have, especially at the start of this year, to go ahead and be able to fill major stadiums for all their big events, namely tonight for Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, Money in the Bank, and all the other shows they have coming up, SummerSlam and what have you, they need to be able to go ahead and get asses in seats. And those 4 talents right there are your marquee names. And there are others that are slightly down the totem pole, but still, I mean, you can look at other names they have that are come back tonight, which is very important and really promising, with Drew McIntyre and Sasha Banks returning back this weekend. That's great news. And there's a lot that can be said about what was done throughout the show tonight. I think they did a really good job. The storytelling for Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, you can dispute all you want on how they used Seth Rollins tonight, and you can dispute how Bobby Lashley won the title. But I called it on Wednesday night on this program. I said, you go back and listen to me, and I repeated it, 3 times on that show when I predicted the show. And other people, I'm sure, would have done the same thing. I said Bobby Lashley was going to win that World WWE Championship. Brock Lesnar was going to re-enter the Royal Rumble match, win it, to go after Roman Reigns. And there we are. We're at the spot. It's as if everything just got put back where it needed to be. You know, this is what I have to say as well. We're kind of back to where we were before the offseason kind of just changed everything up, right? I mean, like really post SummerSlam. Because where everything was before, you know, when the opportunities for the underdogs and for those that are, you know, unsung heroes that are working each and every week got their chance to go and come on up and work. So Big E, you can say the same thing for Liv Morgan or Naomi or Aaliyah or Austin Theory and all these other names that you're hearing now that are being brought up and given a chance to go and get some shine. And then, of course, the other mid-carders that are mainstays that are always kind of towards that main event when it comes to Kevin Owens or Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre. You have all that mixed in. But what they did tonight, every match on the card I felt delivered on what it was supposed to do. Now, the IWC, I'm going to leave it to them to go ahead and complain about how the same people are on the top tonight and how even some of my podcast brethren are already complaining about the fact that there were boos going on in certain parts of the night because of who was let go. Okay, when the Royal Rumble match for the women came up and Sasha Banks gets eliminated early, that gets boos. Yes, I understand it. And we can't count out what the Elimination Chamber will bring us and what Sasha Banks, where she's going to fit into the mix at WrestleMania. She's going to fit into the mix. There's no question about that. Drew McIntyre, the same thing. We don't know where he's going to fit. Seth Rollins, we don't know where he's going to fit. Like, we don't know all these answers yet. And that's what we have left to think about. Now, in terms of the fact that we have all these established stars that have been at the top of the card for a long time. Meanwhile, the WWE, remember, I have been saying this for weeks. I'm hitting it over the head. The fact that there are certain stars that could have come in from NXT, which, by the way, none of those NXT stars came in. We didn't see Braun Breaker. We didn't see Ciampa. We didn't see LA Knight. None of them. None of them entered the Rumble match, which that's a very telling thing. And there was kind of rumors about that. So none of that. Not even in the mix. Better off they were not going to be left behind or overshadowed by everything else going on. That made sense to me. Because there were just certain things that went on with both Rumble matches that fit what the role was. You know, we already knew a lot of what was being put into the matches in terms of the surprises. So that was one thing that everybody's going to kind of drown down as well. I'm not going to be happy about. I got that part. I don't think overall, the people that needed to win, and for the WWE, they have to go ahead and go in the system they are. Because the stars they've been building up right now in the last few years that were part of the NXT Black and Gold system, that developmental system, was not developmental. As we said, it was a haven for this extraordinary independent talent that was never going to reach the criteria that Vince McMahon wanted. Period. No matter how well-intended Triple H was or how much he can lobby and he can push for certain stars to be up to the top, it's not going to be. You're going to see the same people that Vince McMahon believes in, that he crafted in his own light, in his own vision. Those are the ones that are going to stay up there. He's taken 20 plus years with Brock Lesnar, and now you get your title holders, and you know they're established stars, right? Becky and Charlotte holding the women's titles, respectively, and they've been around for what? Probably almost a decade now with them, you know, with the work that was done at NXT in their developmental system and being built to where they are now because they were part of developmental in Full Sail, working their way up, and they've been on this main roster for a long time now, for a number of years. When you look at Roman Reigns and Bobby Lashley, Roman Reigns, again, from the NXT developmental system, and just to build, he's been built to be a main eventer. He's built to be the new John Cena status-like character. That's where he's supposed to be. When you look at Bobby Lashley, much like Brock Lesnar, I'm very content that Bobby Lashley now he didn't get the clean pin, but he got a very convincing win, regardless of what happened, because we saw where things went. He was pretty dominating, and if you give us that match again, there's going to be times where we know Bobby Lashley's going to win that match, regardless. No interference, straight up one-on-one, and Brock Lesnar now has to respect Bobby Lashley because Bobby Lashley's the champion. He came out of that match. Regardless of how things went, the bump, that's on Brock Lesnar's part, same thing goes. But another guy in the territory of OVW, along with Brock, they came up together, and look where they are. And Bobby Lashley being trusted now and being put into the role where he's being truly valued. Same thing where Drew McIntyre was in the same role last year. Now it's Bobby again. Because Bobby dropped that belt at WrestleMania. Now he gets it back, and he could be carrying that belt going into WrestleMania again. So that's one thing I can tell you. For loyalty and for those that have chips on their shoulder and were in the system and were Vince's vision initially, and they got the chance to come on back and prove themselves, Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, no doubt about it, have been rewarded. So they accomplished what they wanted to do overall in their careers. Now, late in their careers, because they're both nearing their 40s, but that's great for them. Hey, they made it. There we are. And then you have Ronda Rousey coming in the mix, which, look, I mean, regardless if she's a part-time or not, same thing with Brock Lesnar. Look at the impact they both give. Ronda's going to be on Raw tomorrow night, probably at the start of the show. No football to contend with, so she's going to probably do just fine, and the numbers are going to go up. I don't even see how post-Rumble Raw does not pull 2 million viewers. I'm predicting that as well. That's how things went and there's a good hype for this show. The overall casual audience, you're going to see a lot of mainstream headlines. Yeah, Johnny Knoxville was out there. Bad Bunny was working out there. Ronda Rousey made her return. There's a lot of newsworthy headlines right there. And the matches they set up, and which we're already getting towards WrestleMania when it comes to matches. We're already getting 2 matches we know for sure. Pretty solid. We're going to know where things are going to go. When it comes to Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch, that's a pretty stellar main event, probably for night 1. And then your main event for night 2 will be Brock and Roman, with a great spin to the storyline that I didn't know they were going to get to. But the genius of Paul Heyman, what an incredible story to tell. And the way they did it, it really was good. You know, we always figured it was going to be some kind of a turn. We just didn't know when. And it was I tell you, I was convinced that Brock and Paul were together, and I really thought that was where the thing was going to go, and Roman had nothing else to go in the mix. But especially even after the DQ loss to Seth Rollins tonight, and I thought Roman Reigns, they're showing that vulnerability, but that's what that match created. We're going to talk about that. Let's go into the matches right now. Let's start off with Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins for the WWE Championship. They set the bar high for this. Was a fantastic match. Of course, I hated the DQ finish, but I think I understood what they were trying to do. So in the match, the mind games were really what they wanted to get out first and foremost, which is the whole story of what was going on here. The one-upsmanship. Seth has always had the upper hand. Has always been able to go and get the upper hand on Roman time after time. From the betrayal of the Shield, which they symbolized tonight several times, and it was a great story to tell. For those that didn't think this was going to be a good idea to go to, look, we got 10 years worth or more of the Shield storyline to work off of and to work over here. And there were various times where Seth and Roman were intertwined with each other in storyline where you could build it back into here. Now, could they have done a better job of building it up years ago? Absolutely, but they didn't. And also because of the fact that Roman Reigns wasn't this amazing, dominant, very well heralded heel champion, the guy we like a lot now. Roman Reigns we like a lot as fans. Speaking for myself, first and foremost. But in the match, Seth coming out of Shield gear was gold. Man, that was a nice touch to start. And constantly going back to the facials on Roman Reigns to see how he's reacting to it. Really good stuff. These guys work very well together. Seth Rollins, it's understated how good he is. And when I heard the idea that they won, initially Seth Rollins was supposed to win the belt, the WWE Championship, I thought it was a great move. Seth Rollins, I don't feel like he's undervalued as a main eventer. I think he could be a main eventer. And for me to go ahead and see Seth Rollins when he's taking on Brock Lesnar, or he's taking on Roman Reigns, or he's taking on whoever you want, Seth Rollins has delivered. And when he's had to when he's a change and evolved his character, he's done it. And we like this, whole Monday Night Messiah that's turned now on his head. And now it's just turned into some other thing where it's just Seth freaking Rollins and the flashy suits and, the cocky attitude and the ha-ha laughing all the time. Like this over-the-top Seth Rollins character, which I really like a lot. It's the best that he's been. And his work now stands to its promise because his work is great. These two together were really great together. Seth with a lot of offense. And the one thing was, you got them all the way to where they were back and forth with each other. And then Seth was dominating, buckle bomb and stomp. But once that near fall happened and Roman kicked out 2.5, yeah, Seth was going to have to go after that again. And then Seth tried to stomp one more time to try to finish the job. So again, smart all the way through with Seth throughout this match. And then Roman came back and then Roman took back the momentum. And then Seth took everything Roman had and, Superman punches, spears, all that stuff, was also able to go and kick out. And then we got to the guillotine. And the story that was being told where the guillotine kept holding on. And Seth, with like the superhuman kind of feel to it, would not tap. And Roman just done. We know that if Roman Reigns had the Usos at ringside, the Usos would have intervened somewhere in that match where it got to that point. But we see what happened right here is that with every feud that Roman Reigns has had, okay, he's been able to one up everybody else. Now, the fact that they kept Roman and Seth intact in terms of Seth has still never lost to Roman Reigns. That story can be told again whenever you want. You could add him into the match with Brock Lesnar for all we know. We don't know yet. But Seth was kept strong. And Roman Reigns now, until we get to WrestleMania and this build between Brock and Roman goes on, Seth can continue to be this thorn in the side, which is exactly what he was when he cashed in the briefcase. What was it, WrestleMania 31? Same thing. Seth was this guy was just nagging in the middle. That same component comes in here years later, but without the Money in the Bank briefcase. Except Seth has a win over Roman Reigns in DQ, but Seth could have very well won the match if things could have gone the way it was, because we don't know what the outcome would have been. We don't know if Seth would have made his way out of the guillotine, but Roman Reigns couldn't wait for it to happen as the heel persona. He wasn't going to get the win clean, and he wasn't going to continue the match. He said, that's enough. I'm just going to go ahead and, keep the guillotine on, screw the count, and that's it. This is an effective DQ. I'll say that. I don't think it was a bad DQ to have. I think what they needed to do with it was fine, because I don't think I would have liked to have seen Seth lose. You want to keep him strong. He's been winning the whole time. I mean, he didn't necessarily. In the 5-way, he wasn't the one that took the pin. It was Big E and Seth. He might have lost in that match, but it was a 5-way, and he never got that title shot he was supposed to get anyway on the WWE Championship. And now he's got a one-up on the Universal Champion. Seth is in a place where he could be wherever he wants. Now, does Seth go back to Raw? And does he get himself where he gets himself entitled to a title shot, say against Bobby Lashley, or gets intertwined into the Elimination Chamber match coming up in 3 weeks? That's where we have to find out where Seth lands now. Because we now see that, Seth was brought over to the SmackDown side to have this match, but we don't know where Seth's going to be in the mix. Now, back to Brock and Roman. Then you go ahead and have Brock later in the Royal Rumble, to get his title shot because of what happens in the WWE title match, because we didn't know where Roman, at the point of the Royal Rumble match tonight, Brock was still with the WWE title after the Day One deal of that fatal 5-way. So you had to kind of get both of these guys back to their respective brands. You had to go and get Brock back to SmackDown. And now with Ronda, you can kind of do that now. And then you just got to figure out, okay, what's next? How are we going to get Brock back over to our initial WrestleMania match, that main event with Brock and Roman? We had to do something here to extricate Brock from that title, unless you were going to make it title versus title, which is not what they were going to do, regardless of what fantasy booking the IWC wants to do. That's not what's going to happen. So the story goes that Seth has shaken Roman's confidence. And by the way, Roman symbolizing again, after we saw Seth coming out in the Shield gear, that Roman positions himself behind the back, and post-match, by the way, behind the back, swings a chair into Seth's back just like Seth did to him. Because when we saw that betrayal, Roman's the one that got hit first. And he got smacked in the back just like Seth did it. Roman did it the same way. Almost like full circle retribution. But that's only a small bit of recompense for Roman because of the fact that now he's vulnerable. If he couldn't get the job done with Seth, how's he going to get it done with Brock? Which is why part of the thing we had that story about where the initial supposed breakup with Paul Heyman, you're saying to yourself, well, Paul Heyman and the firing of Paul Heyman, that orchestrated act, the main reason for the firing was because Roman Reigns was trying to protect Roman Reigns. Paul Heyman was trying to protect Roman Reigns from Brock Lesnar. It wasn't the other way around. So Roman Reigns is vulnerable. And that right there with Seth is going to be in the back of his mind. Meanwhile, Paul's going to have to try to continue to give confidence. And the Usos backup is going to have to give what Roman Reigns needs to win. But now what happened was, because of this match with Seth and DQ, Roman Reigns is destined to lose that belt. And I think what's going to happen is he's going to lose that belt at WrestleMania. It's going to happen sooner than later now, because the dominant Roman Reigns we had with 508 days or whatever it is now, that's coming to an end. They're signaling that right there just by what they did with Seth and the fact that he couldn't finish Seth Rollins off. He couldn't get the wins like he got everybody else. The one guy he couldn't get, and the one guy that has beaten him before, is Brock Lesnar. And so now here we are. So Roman's confidence shaken due to Seth Rollins. And we can come back to the story again, where either Seth's going to stay over on the SmackDown brand and be in the triangle with Roman and Brock, which I don't think they'll need, because we'll just go back to where we were, where Roman and Brock are having great promos together. But now Roman's back in control again. And then Brock, even though he got screwed by Roman Reigns later in the night, Brock was able to do what he's done before, enter the Rumble, win it, get his title shot again. It's pretty well done. We could have had title versus title. I don't think we need that. But now we get Roman versus Brock as planned. Worked for me. Okay. We're 63 days from WrestleMania as we record this tonight. 9 weeks we have coming up for that, where we get the big 2-night event coming up. And we pretty much have the idea of 2 matches we already know are pretty sure in the books, ready to be scheduled for WrestleMania. If anybody needs to go figure out what's going to go on in Dallas, most likely I'm going to think it's Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, night 1 to close out night 1. Roman versus Brock, night 2. Now, the hype for WrestleMania that they put up, the countdown promo was fantastic. Something about the weekend being the soundtrack for WrestleMania, doing Blinding Lights before, and I love that. And then this year, the same thing with Sacrifice. I love that song, by the way. It's fantastic. And the album's pretty good. It's very interesting and different. I like it. And so we got that good stuff. Now, and it wasn't Take My Breath, wasn't that the Day One song? I think it was. I forget. I think it was. So let's get into the second match. Women's Royal Rumble match. Now, this had a little more interesting. I thought the Women's Royal Rumble match might have had a few more things that came from it that were a little more interesting and exciting, because there was just a lot of legends that came back and returned. That was part of the thing that came from. But a few other things that also caught me that, I enjoyed. But there was quite a bit of the way they formatted it was actually quite interesting. So Sasha comes in number 1. And then I said that there was going to probably be one more person coming out of the Forbidden Door that we kept hearing about. When I predicted it was Matt Cardona, I was wrong. But it was an NWA star, Melina, who is currently working for the National Wrestling Alliance of Billy Corgan, the NWA. She opened the Forbidden Door, enters tonight at number 2, but she was quickly dropped. And Sasha Banks taunted and basically did the whole Melina shtick as she tossed her out. Not much happens after this, because there's a number of the underdog types when you see Liv Morgan, Aaliyah come out later on. Naomi comes out a little bit later after that. Bianca Belair comes in at 8. Something just poignant real quick. They wanted to give Bianca another long run where she's, in there and getting a lot of eliminations and staying in a long run of the match, because she did so well last year and won it. So you wanted to see what the challenge was for her this time around. The Naomi Sonya Deville stuff was quite interesting. So now from right, Sonya was able to get the win. What was it? What was it that happened on SmackDown? Wasn't that what it was? So Sonya's gotten the upper hand on Naomi. And then Sonya Deville decided she was going to get herself into the match because she was announced as an entrant, but didn't decide to jump in because she was waiting for Naomi to come out. So Sonya Deville is destined to go and destroy and just ruin anything that Naomi has coming in her path. Any kind of possible success. And they actually used Cameron, who we haven't seen in a long time. Ariana Andrew, one of the Funkadactyls. They brought her out to the Funkadactyls music. She came in, and all she was a ploy for punching down on Naomi. Sonya comes in, takes her out, done. And that whole storyline is really working good. That's one of the things I really do enjoy with Naomi and Sonya Deville. And by the way, whoever's doing the work for Sonya Deville when it comes to makeup and the look, she's looking amazing. She looks like $1 million right now. Class act. And it's nice to see her back in the ring again. Good stuff for her. Especially because now they've developed this character out of the whole MMA thing that she was originally with Mandy Rose. And they've definitely moved that character forward. She's been developed a lot. And I really like Sonya Deville now. A lot in the managerial role and in this role right here with Naomi. And just bringing her back into the mix is great stuff. Charlotte Flair, significant, is brought in at 17. And we knew that in this, the storyline of Charlotte entering the Rumble herself so she can pick her own opponent, the real ego trip that was coming out of that was quite interesting. So Aaliyah and Naomi are taken out, along with help from Sonya Deville, and Charlotte starts getting dominant. Then, and I forget which number Mickie James came in, but Mickie James came into the match, and she came out. Who would have thunk it would have been that way? But yes, Mickie James made it into the match with the Knockouts title, right? She came out with the Knockouts championship. She came out in the gimmick of hardcore country. Like, are you serious? Is that what we did? Fantastic. She was in at number 20. That's what it was. I made to mention that. So she comes in at number 20, and she even got it on the Chiron. Like, Impact did make a hype. Now, Melina was tweeted by NWA for her appearance. Mickie James, same thing. And a lot of people on the Impact side were also cheering that Mickie James made it in there. So good by WWE. Now, Melina was never recognized for her work in NWA, but the fact that Mickie James is champion, Knockouts world champion in Impact Wrestling, significant. And she had a decent run in there. She didn't come in and out. She was about, 6 to 10 minutes, I'm guessing, and done. That's fine. She got her appearance, and she looked good, and it was significant. Happy for Mickie James. Happy for Melina to see that Forbidden Door being open, and to say, you know what? We're not going to hold back the fact that you're working with another company. We want you to come in because you've worked with us for so long. The thought process that they're not going to be, in their prime working with coming into WWE now, which is why even like Alita, who looks, her best days are behind her, looked a little bit flat coming out there, and she was brought in late into the night as well. And so when I'm looking at things, the big pop that really came out after Mickie James was Ronda Rousey. Big pop for her to come in at 28. Quite a good spot for her to be brought in here. Charlotte, they flash right to her. She shows concern, and that kind of tells you Ronda's going to rule the night. She's going to rule this Rumble match. This is her night to win. Because there was nobody else I thought would win this match. I don't think Charlotte was going to win this at all, and I didn't see anybody else that was left that really made me feel like it was going to happen. Now, the other name that was interesting, because I think she's going to be intricate when it comes to what's going to be going on going forward, Shayna Baszler was final entrant. And Shayna and Ronda looked like they were buddies. And since we're going to go this route now where Ronda is coming back and it's not going to be Natalya working with her, I could very well see where Ronda doesn't have the horsewoman on her side. She doesn't have her stable of other fellow MMA stars with her. They've all been let go. They've all been released. Shayna Baszler, they all have a little bit of, they definitely have some familiarity with each other, both in MMA, So Shayna Baszler getting a rub off of Ronda Rousey works really good. So I like that Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler might be working together. In the match, Charlotte does finish things up. We got Baszler, Rousey, Belair, and Flair to be the final four. Charlotte eliminates Baszler and Blair. This will be Belair. Jesus. I'm trying to read my notes. So it's Rousey and Flair one-on-one. I like the fact that we got this here because the match we want to see, we already saw Ronda and Charlotte together. Let's get her back with Becky again because that's the one that we want to see. Charlotte should be working with somebody else. I don't know who that's going to be. It could be Sasha. It could be somebody else. But I'd like to see Charlotte get somebody else there in that title picture. Because Becky and Ronda, we want to have that match to one-on-one. You know, we had the triple threat, but we want to have that one-on-one. That was the one thing I think we all wanted. And then, you know, obviously with Ronda and Becky, we know their promos are going to be good together. And now you get to move off of, you know, Doudrop and the match that she had with Becky Lynch, which was just a buffer to get the Ronda Rousey. And that's what it is. Doudrop was brought, at least Doudrop gets the title shot here and had a decent, 8-minute match. I don't know how long they went, but they had a decent match together to finish up. But Doudrop wasn't going to be much of anything else after this. I didn't think so anyway. When I look at the match, okay, so yeah, Becky and Doudrop actually had 13 minutes. It was a little bit longer than I thought. And they did an hour for the Women's Royal Rumble match. Seth and Roman was actually 14 minutes. Bobby Lashley, Brock Lesnar was 10 minutes. 12 minutes for the mixed tag team match. And 51 minutes for the Men's Royal Rumble match. Anyways. So Becky and Ronda works for me. That's what I want for that. There was a report that actually came out that once Ronda Rousey won the Royal Rumble match, she's pointing to the sign. Pyro comes off of the WrestleMania sign, and apparently fans had to be evacuated from the area underneath the WrestleMania sign because it started melting from Ronda Rousey's pyro going on around it. A little bit of a mechanical thing. So there was not much to say. Becky's outside. The match is what tells the story. That's it. And they put it on pay-per-view. They need to give Becky an opponent. They're going to go back to Liv Morgan again because they've already beat her a bunch of times. They're not going to go to Rhea Ripley because she's got to deal with Nikki Ash and whatever that significance is. And that's it. So there was not much to say of that match. Match number 4, WWE Championship, Bobby Lashley against Brock Lesnar. The hype video was incredible. And seeing it again, they had it in the pre-show and during the match tonight, before the match. When WWE gets a chance to do promos like this, these packages are just phenomenal. They're so good at this. When they really step up their A game is fantastic. It's really good. We got started off with a suplex showdown by both Brock and Bobby doing this. And spears by Lashley to get into Lesnar. And, you know, they could play up the whole diverticulitis every time that, you know, you hit Lesnar in the stomach. That's always going to be the vulnerable spot. That's always been a weakness to Lesnar. We know for a long time since he came back. So they're playing that up here. The later part of the match was the ref bump. Because you had where Lashley was brought into the corner to hit the referee. And then another one when a F5 swung Lashley into flailing into the referee, and that knocks him out. And that was enough of an opportunity to get Roman out there. And Roman comes out, and Paul Heyman, when asked for the WWE title belt, gladly gives it over without hesitation. And then just the subtle sleight of hand of like, oh, he gave him the belt. And then the result ends. Brock is pinned by Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley is again WWE champion. And Paul, as Roman walks out, Paul follows right behind. And that's all you need to tell. Everything kind of just said itself. And I'm just like, Very smooth. Very smooth turn. What a betrayal by Paul Heyman to his advocate. He is still very much special counsel, and he is very much devoted and loyal to his tribal chief, which I really like a lot. You know, Paul, either way, this is the Paul Heyman storyline, and it was done fantastic. Very good swerve, great storytelling, and a great way to get some real heat back into Brock and Roman again. Now you have it where Brock and Roman are set where they are, and they found their way to get back to their match again. And you found a way to get there without having to stretch it out. You found a middle point to redirect this match to the main event as you wanted it to be. It's in a good place. It totally is. The mixed tag team match, Edge and Beth Phoenix versus The Miz and Maurice. This was fine. Maurice actually did some pretty good spots in the match. Looked like she was pretty much was getting herself ready to come back into the ring again. She looked good out there. Edge and Beth were good, and Edge and Beth win. Nothing more to say about that. Kind of just a continuation of what we were getting. And I don't know if you continue this feud or what, but I can see where Edge and Miz continue going on. But Edge and Beth Phoenix getting the win does make sense to me. That's the right booking for this match. But they can continue this. Like, it doesn't have to be over. We can see if there's going to be heat going to be coming back from The Miz, coming back into this match afterwards. Men's Royal Rumble. You have AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Austin Theory leading off. Johnny Knoxville comes in at 9, almost as number 11. Significant entrance. And almost, he is the Great Khali. He's just another form of it. He's the giant now. And they've been needing a giant. They don't have a Big Show. They don't have, they had Braun Strowman, who was kind of like their giant, but now Omos, he fits the role of the giant. They need to have a giant. Omos is that. It kind of works like that all the time. They don't have a Kane right now. That's what they need. They need the big guy, the one guy that gets to go ahead and climb over the ropes on the top rope. Climbs over the top rope to get into the ring. 7'3", 400 pounds. Omos had to go out there. So they put him in there. He confronts AJ Styles, confronts some other guys, tosses people out, gets eliminations in the match. But in order to get him out, they needed a number of guys, AJ Styles, Austin Theory, Rich Holland, Ricochet, Chad Gable, and Dominic Mysterio, to get him out of the match. So they kept him strong, kept him short. That's what they have to continue to do with him. But they obviously have a lot in mind for him to come in and be something significant. That's what they want. That's their plan. Not much else to go and say about who was coming in. A lot of mid-carders coming into the play. Not a lot of surprises. No legends this time in the Rumble. They kept it pretty much where things were at. Significant McIntyre returns. Gets a big pop at 21. And the main story with him was, you wanted to make sure that with that whole story they told about Baron Corbin and Madcap Moss, really destroying his neck in a backstage attack, that McIntyre needed to come back in strong, and he needed to get his retribution on both those guys. He not only eliminates them both, but he also tears them apart outside the ring afterwards. So McIntyre comes in strong and stays towards the end of the match, right to the end. Now, the other big name that really came out afterwards was Bad Bunny with another nice appearance. Crisp on his spots. Hits a Canadian Destroyer. Is hitting some moves out. He hits another crossbody shot, jump off the top rope kind of deal. Bad Bunny still had it, man. This guy's on his touring because he's about to go and do a big, 50 city tour, something like that, for his thing. And he had time to come on back. He puts this in here, makes the appearance. He was great again. Really, he enjoys being in that wrestling ring. You could just tell he's like a kid in a candy store, having a great old time. He got F5 this time by Brock Lesnar. Fantastic. You can't ask for better than that. He had a good time. Shane makes his return to 28, and he goes right after Kevin Owens. So we'll see where that goes with things. That's good and interesting. I want to see if anybody else gets added into that whole mix. But do we get Kevin and Shane again? Do we kind of stir that back up again? Randy Orton gets a hometown pop. He gets eliminated early. Doesn't spend much time in there. That pisses people off, but hey, the crowd's going to be like that. But Randy Orton and Matt Riddle, they have their own thing right now to deal with when it comes to the tag team titles, because that crew, that duo together, are going to have some WrestleMania match, and it really doesn't matter if they have the tag team titles or not, which the Alpha Academy does, which we know, doesn't make a difference. RK Bro, way over than Alpha Academy, way over. Brock makes it in at 30. He cleans house with whoever's left, one-on-one with Drew, and he F5s Drew out to elimination. And I said it. Brock Lesnar was going to enter the Rumble. I was totally right. Totally called it. What can I say? Kofi, by the way, he was in at 24, and unfortunately, I don't know if it was going to happen or not, but he was supposed to go and get the shot where he was going to get he did get tossed out, but he was going to try to grab the barricade and try to stay up, but his feet still hit the floor, so the stunt mistimed. And you know what? He doesn't have to worry about that streak anymore. Probably better off, because he's getting up there in age, and that's, him at 40 years old, it's going to be tough for him to keep doing those stunts for that particular match. And we don't know if he actually got hurt from the match after all. We don't know if that. So Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar are going to happen. We know that. Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, we know that's going to happen too. And that works for me. A lot of good things going on with what they were going to do. And it was good. And there were other names that were rumored. Paige expected was supposed to come back. And we heard others. I'm not disappointed by the Royal Rumble matches, especially when it comes to what the results were. And that's fine. And what they did tonight, at least we know for sure that a number of matches are going to be set up for WrestleMania that we have a direction of. We already know our two main events. That we have 9 weeks ahead. That's good news. Now you build the rest of the matches. We start that off with Raw and SmackDown this week. But the hype, the build-up, it's good. I feel like the company's doing something positive right now. Their booking's pretty good. And now let's see what they do going forward with some of the matches they have set up and what they're going to try to set up. We'll wait. The mid-card titles don't matter much right now. The tag team titles don't matter much right now. But we need to find out what they're going to do with the WWE Championship and who Bobby Lashley is going to face and who Charlotte Flair is going to face for the SmackDown Women's title. We have to figure out the answers to those questions to fill those up and how we figure out those two matches, because that's going to be significant. And then we figure out those other, 4 to 6 matches that are significant, that are going to get some real significant storytelling time and some real angles being put in. We have to wait on that. And that could be RK Bro, that could be Drew McIntyre, that could be Seth Rollins, that could be a lot of different people. But there's a lot left to go and find out, and a little bit of variety we're going to get now coming in, where there's going to be certain stars that you might have seen in the Rumble, but you know what? Liv Morgan, Shotzi, Rhea Ripley, Nikki Ash, some of these other stars, you know what? They're all going to take a back seat now, because the next 9 weeks is WrestleMania time, and WrestleMania Backlash a few weeks after that. So for the next 3 months, take a break. We're in WrestleMania season right now. And we will continue talking about this on the next program. We'll find out what goes on after Raw. Anything else, any other fallout comes from the show, we'll talk about that on the next Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at wrestlingisreal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.